How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jason. I'll be your host on this CFL talk show, Hussey's Huddle. In this video, we'll be looking back at the 2018 Johnny Manziel trade and what each team, Hamilton and Montreal, actually got out of the deal, and we'll determine winners and losers and what it means going into the future still for these two teams. But really quickly before we get started, if you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by hitting that like button and subscribing to Hussey's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. I'd greatly appreciate all the support. And once again, guys, I'm really sorry for the lack of uploads lately, but I've just been super busy in school and whatnot. But I'm back, and I'm really excited to get into today's video. Let's go. So as most of us know, Johnny Manziel is easily the biggest name involved in this trade, and so I think it's fitting that we start with his road and how he got to the CFL and what his past was. Manziel started at Texas A&M from 2012 to 2013, capturing the Heisman Trophy in 2012 as a redshirt freshman, becoming the first in history to accomplish that feat. After his second season in 2013, he decided to forego his remaining eligibility to enter the 2014 NFL Draft, where he was viewed as a likely first-round pick. Though he faced plenty of scrutiny during his lead-up to the draft, Manziel would eventually be selected with the 22nd pick of the first round by the Cleveland Browns, which sent the NFL into a frenzy of hype and expectations given the desperation level of that franchise at that given time. Needless to say, not even the most conservative expectations were met during Manziel's time with the Browns, with the quarterback throwing for a grand total of 7 touchdown passes over 2 seasons with the team. What was worse was that Manziel's off-field actions during his time in Cleveland effectively burned every potential bridge around the league, to the point that he never even received a second NFL contract, which leads us to the beginning of Manziel's CFL tenure. In 2017, 2 years after Manziel last played a snap of football, the Hamilton Tiger Cats announced that the quarterback was added to the team's negotiation list. Shortly after, the quarterback would sign a 2-year contract with Hamilton, just in time for training camp for the 2018 season. Manziel saw preseason action for the Tiger Cats, but due to the emergence of Jeremiah Mazzoli as an all-star starting CFL quarterback, the former Heisman winner never made a regular season appearance for the club, which leads us to the topic of today's video. On July 22nd, 2018, Manziel was traded to the Montreal Alouettes in a deal that included 5 players and 2 draft picks, a blockbuster trade by CFL standards. Now, 2 years later, with many of these assets now being conveyed, we can actually take a look back at this giant trade and weigh who got the better end of the deal. I'll first go over every individual piece involved in the trade before bringing it all together and determining a winner. Let's start with Manziel himself, and many of you already know how this one turns out. After arriving in Montreal mid-season, he took a few weeks to learn the Al system. In week 8, a couple weeks after arriving, he would make his first start for the team, which did not really go well, to say the least. In his starting debut, the former Heisman winner completed only 11 of 20 passes for 104 yards, throwing no touchdowns while also throwing 4 interceptions. Just an ugly stat line, like Ryan Leaf would be proud. It did not get much better the following week, where he struggled again until injury ultimately forced him to leave the game and miss the following few weeks. When he returned, he didn't fare much better, starting the team's final 6 games and never really showcasing the potential that many thought he had when he came to the league. Over 8 starts with Montreal in 2018, Manziel had a 2-6 win-loss record while throwing for an ugly 5-7 touchdown to interception ratio, and surprisingly enough, he never even rushed for a CFL touchdown. The following offseason, the Alouettes announced that they were directed by the league office to release Johnny Football as a result of the quarterback violating the terms of his entry into the league. They also stated that if any team had attempted to sign the quarterback, it would be voided by the league, bringing Manziel's short CFL tenure to an end. He has since played in a short stint in the Alliance of American Football League prior to its bankruptcy in 2019, and most recently played in the startup fan-controlled football league on the same team as former NFL cast-off Josh Gordon. The second piece that Montreal received was veteran American offensive tackle Tony Washington, who at the time of the trade already had plenty of CFL experience across stints with Calgary, Toronto, Edmonton, and Hamilton. As a guy who is more than capable of holding down a starting tackle spot, Washington stepped right into that role rather quickly following the trade, and continued that into the 2019 season. Though he was limited to 13 games in 2019, when he was in there, he was, in my opinion, Montreal's best offensive lineman. Washington's getting up there in age at 35 years old, but re-up with the team for the 2021 season whenever it gets underway. The final piece going to Montreal in this deal, offensive lineman Landon Rice, is easily the least consequential of the three, but is also pretty funny. Rice was a veteran Canadian offensive lineman by the time of the trade, having been in the league since 2013, all spent with Hamilton. After being traded to Montreal, he started a few games for the club, but would actually be released about a month following the trade. But wait, there's more. He then turned around a few days later and re-signed with Hamilton for the rest of the season. But get this, guys, in 2019 free agency, guess who Rice signs with? The Montreal Alouettes. Rice has remained on the roster ever since, and is mostly just a veteran depth piece, but funny journey for him since the trade, to say the least. Now we turn to what Hamilton received in compensation for Manziel, Washington, and Rice. We'll start with defensive end Jamal Westerman, who is a classified Canadian in the CFL. Westerman bounced around the NFL for years before coming to the CFL, but absolutely bursted onto the scene as a rookie in 2015, registering 17 sacks with Winnipeg. That earned him a nomination for the league's most outstanding Canadian. However, he would lose out to Brian Sinopoli in the final. However, as his CFL career progressed, he wasn't really able to replicate that high-end production, with declining sack production year after year. By 2018, at the time of this trade, his career was winding down, as illustrated by the mere 10 tackles and 0 sacks in 8 games that Westerman produced after coming over to Hamilton in the trade. These would actually go on to be the final games Westerman would play in the CFL to date, as he suffered a ruptured Achilles tendon during that final season with Hamilton. He was on the road to making his return in 2019, but would go on to suffer a torn triceps while in practice. During the pandemic, Westerman has since taken a coaching position at Rutgers University, where he played in college. The other player that Hamilton received in the deal was a player the team's fanbase was already well familiar with, wide receiver Chris Williams. The 2018 trade brought Williams back to where his CFL journey began. The receiver would be named to 2 All-Star teams while capturing the league's 2011 Rookie of the Year award over his initial stint in Tigertown from 2011 to 2012, before getting an opportunity with the Chicago Bears in the NFL. However, his second stint with the team following the 2018 trade wasn't exactly a triumphant return. Williams would play in just 4 games following the trade before suffering a season-ending knee injury on a non-contact play. He has not played in the CFL since, and it's fair to wonder if we've seen his last down of professional football. The Tiger Cats also received 2 future first-round picks in the Manziel trade, and this is really where the value potentially lies in this deal for Hamilton, now 2 years removed from the event. Thing is, we have not seen any of these players in a CFL game yet due to the league's canceled 2020 season. However, we do know now who these picks turned into. The first of the selections, which landed at number 5 overall in 2020, ended up being Guelph offensive lineman Colter Woodmansey. I'm super intrigued to finally see Woodmansey's CFL debut in 2021, and honestly I think Hamilton is planning for him to be their immediate starter at center. The team did not bring back longtime starter Mike Filer, and really hasn't brought any veterans in with center experience. So lots to watch in 2021 with Woodmansey coming into the fold. The other first rounder in the trade conveyed into the number 9 selection in this most recent CFL draft, which Hamilton used to select UBC linebacker Nick Cross. Cross went a bit earlier in the draft than I expected, but after digging a bit deeper on the prospect, I'm more and more excited to see what he brings to the table. After hearing his former coach's testimonial during his recent appearance on the Rod Peterson show, it'll be interesting to see how the Cats deploy him in the future. Unlike Woodmansey, however, I wouldn't expect much of an immediate impact from Cross as a rookie, mostly just due to Hamilton's ratio situation. I don't expect him to start a Canadian linebacker, but I'm really excited for his future nonetheless. Now, with all that said, let's take a look back at the trade as a whole 2 years later and break down what each team has really gotten out of the deal. First off, what stands out right off the bat is that essentially 3 players in this deal provided basically no value to the team that traded for them. Manziel was basically a disaster for the Owls, while Westerman and Williams both suffered major injuries shortly after arriving in Hamilton and never played another snap for the team in 2019. Another thing that is obvious, at least at this point, is that Tony Washington is easily the best player involved in this trade, being a starting caliber left impactful who is still with the team. Landon Rice is still in Montreal too, but he isn't all that impactful of a player. So the immediate returns on this trade slightly favor Montreal despite the Manziel fiasco. However, we could easily look back on this as soon as this next year and look at it completely differently. If Wood Manzi becomes a consistent starter and Cross shows the potential that the Tiger Cats deemed worthy of a first-round pick, then it might look rather lopsided in a few years. You guys will have to let me know what you think of this bizarre trade down in the comments section. And with that said, that is going to be the end of today's video. I want to thank everyone for watching. Once again, my name is Jason. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by hitting that like button and subscribing to Hussey's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. You could also share the video with a friend. I'd greatly appreciate that as well. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.